Hey there, fellow artists and designers. Thanks for coming aboard today. This is episode 2 in the Animating Environmental Effects mini-series. This time we're working on smoke. Just to refresh your memory on the premise behind this series is we're taking the animation tutorials in animated GIF form from Miniboss, link to that blog in the description, and we are using them to learn about animating different types of environmental effects. Now for this smoke one, we can see that the first part of the animation here, the explosion, doesn't really apply to our situation, but everything else is going to work. And the smoke clearly begins in some kind of larger mass and then breaks apart gradually into smaller and smaller sections as it rises up to the top. This is the same campfire scene from last time. I just thought it would be a nice, easy opportunity to put some smoke effect into this scene, so I'm just going to reuse it. I have the smoke on a separate layer underneath the campfire. I'm going to turn off all the rest of the background material so that you can more easily see what I'm doing. And as you can see, I'm animating on 2s and slowly working my way up. As you can see, I started the smoke, the big blob of smoke, several frames in. That way, that when I have other layers that loop, they're not all looping on the exact same pattern. So you can see gradually how we're applying that, and then the smoke breaks apart and gets smaller as it rises, and then loops back around to continue those first 4 frames. So it's the loop repeats twice over the 48 frame animation, and those original first 4 frames were obviously at the end. So as I finished drawing, I just dragged them over and moved them to the beginning. Here you can see I've created another layer. I just called it Smoke 2. And I'm doing the exact same process with a slightly different color, so we have different shades of gray. And this one is a better example, starting from the beginning with the frames not shifted. So you can kind of see how the smoke plume gradually gets bigger and then breaks apart, just like we see in the tutorial. And then all the little particles eventually rise up, get smaller, and disappear. And then that same cycle repeats. You can see it now playing at speed. Looks pretty good. Turning on the original layer, the smoke layer, you can see how the two now composite pretty nicely together. Now they're all breaking apart at the same time up at the top, which is why we're going to in just a sec duplicate those 2 layers and shift things over. And just I'm experimenting with what it's like to turn down the opacity here. Now I'm going to add some variation to both smoke layers with a slightly different shade of gray. I mean, we're all working in grayscale here with the smoke. And this time I'm not going to copy the frames over. I'm just going to go by hand on each little blob of smoke and add these little highlights in a different color, which makes it look like we have more smoke particles that are operating in this little system. And by drawing each one by hand, we have just enough little variation so that the loop isn't quite as obvious. And it's just a matter of going in there and giving a little sense of a rounded highlight so that it doesn't seem as much like one big giant blob, but rather a system of little smoke clouds internally in there. I don't know if I'm a fan of using this really dark black color. I should have probably gone with a lighter gray, but it is what it is right now. I can always go back and change it later if I change my mind. And then, looking at the tutorial once again, those highlights, they gradually stop as the little collections of smoke particles get smaller and smaller. The sense is that most of it has already vanished and you just have a few little stragglers left behind. And you can also see that this process is going pretty fast, so that we're not losing much time by not copying and pasting frames, and we gain a lot of variety in the smoke, so I think it's definitely worth it for the few extra seconds that it takes to do. And I think what I'll probably do is do the exact same process with a different shade of gray again on the Smoke 2 layer, but you don't really need to see that part again. It's just really rinsing and repeating on the next layer. And now for the last bit, we'll do some duplication of layers and some frame shifting magic. So I take the Smoke 1 and the Smoke 2 and duplicate those. So we have a copy of Smoke 1 and Smoke 2. I'm going to make sure that everything else is locked so I don't accidentally mess any of that stuff up. And I'm going to shift select both layers and then move them over . There we go. And then take the ones at the end, those 4, and bring them around to the front, which is exactly what I did with Smoke 1 at the beginning. Just kind of dragging those over and dropping them, making sure that they line up exactly. And now we have we've doubled the amount of smoke with very little extra work. And now is a chance to maybe play around with some opacity levels on all the different layers. This is where we can take care of some of that really sharp black color. All right, for smoke to be that black wouldn't be really necessarily from firewood. So black smoke feels more like something chemical burning, some kind of like burning oil. So this is just a matter of kind of personal preference until you get what you like. I'm not using the same opacity level for each of those layers. Each one has its own. And now we can probably turn on all the rest just to have a look at our whole scene. See how this all looks together. Go, and that's everything. Pretty nice scene overall. Once again, I owe a debt of gratitude to Miniboss for creating such an awesome and very clear tutorial, very useful. And I'm really enjoying this little experimental series where I'm getting to increase my skills, get some extra practice doing some environmental effects, and I hope you are enjoying this little mini series as well. And I hope that your smoke effect is something that entertains and delights you. So thanks again for stopping by. Stay tuned, there will be a new one real quick.